Hello, friends. Welcome to Investment Immigration Conversations. I'm your host, Carolyn Lee, principal and founder of Carolyn Lee PLLC, a U.S. investment immigration law firm dedicated to helping clients build their future with investment immigration. And I'm here with Ishaan Khanna, who is like the president and the head of AIIA, which is an investor advocacy organization founded to do just that, to voice the immigrant investors in the EB-5 space, a voice that was not there until Ishaan founded the organization with a couple of other amazing founders. So, Ishaan, welcome, welcome, welcome. And please tell us about you, about AIIA, its mission, its foundation, what you're working on, whatever you want to share, just by way of kicking us off.
Sure, absolutely. So hey everyone, my name's Ishaan. I'm originally from India. I did EB-5 back in 2016. I started working in the EB-5 industry in 2017-ish, and I've been involved in this space for a while. I don't actively work in EB-5 as much as like the way I used to, but I started a nonprofit back in 2021 solely for the purpose of representing EB-5 investors and their voice, especially in Congress and other places. And the fact is, in 2021, the program lapsed. It impacted a lot of immigrant investors, and there was a huge conversation, a debate happening between the industry and members of Congress as to what the future of the program would look like. Meanwhile, you had hundreds, thousands of investors impacted, interviews canceled, everyone's dreams put on hold, and that really impacted a lot of people. So we really push for. In fact, our signature initiative was the grandfathering initiative, which I know we're going to talk about right now. And essentially, what it does is it protects investors. It protects investors from lapses in the future. So why this is so important and why is the work that we do so critical, especially today? I think a lot of things changed exactly a year ago today. About a year ago, in fact, Carolyn Lee and I did a webinar just like this, right as someone, Secretary Lutnick, stood right behind the President of the United States and said, EB-5 is full of fraud, it should be shut down, and we're going to replace it with the Trump Gold Card. Now, had that not happened, I think this would be business as usual. Yes, we have this grandfathering provision that is expiring in 6 months' time, but that probably wouldn't have been so critical. I think people would have continued to invest and proceed with EB-5. But now the dynamics have changed so much. There is so much more of a focus on EB-5. And in fact, there's something that I'd said exactly a year ago on this in this webinar, which was that we're suddenly going mainstream now. Like, my friends who have
Yeah,
nothing to
it's
do
very
with
prescient. Yeah.
EB-5 are like, wait, this gold card, that's like your line of work, right? So I think our work and what we do has now really taken center stage, and it really impacts immigrant investors. It impacts the American economy, and especially projects and offerings that receive this money from EB-5 investors that really have a positive impact on the country at zero cost to the American taxpayer. So there's a lot at
Yeah.
stake.
I mean, Ishaan, I remember when AIIA was in its stages of being founded. It was really, really exciting. I mean, do you remember those webinars that we would, I think it was COVID or maybe just
Yeah.
pre-COVID. And remember we would have those Zoom calls with like, I mean, it felt like hundreds, it felt like we were in like the National Congress or something. Like we were like banding together and talking about the crisis from the individuals, the families, the investors' point of view. And it
Right.
was really, really exciting. And I really commend you for organizing, for being that voice, sometimes being a little incendiary, but you
That's kind of
need
my
a
style,
fire.
right? I mean,
What?
yeah.
What? Yeah, sometimes you need a fire.
Yeah, because I just feel like, it's easy to design policy when you're not the one like wiring $800,000 into it. I really don't want to see a scenario like 2021 again. I saw horrifying scenarios. I've seen suicide, divorce, so many things that have stemmed from making this investment when all these immigrants are trying to do is just build a better life for themselves in this country. And I would hope that no matter what happens in the future, all these immigrants can get their fair shot of getting a green card and hopefully the money back too.
Yeah. Well, that's what this is about. That's what this is about. All right. Well, so we're going to talk about this year and these big, like, it's like striking the clock. It's like we've got these big deadlines. And the biggest one really is the grandfathering sunset, which is happening September 30, 2026. And I don't know what you're hearing. Let's start with, is there any prospect of extending the grandfathering deadline to align with the larger program sunset, September 30, 2027? Or, I mean, what are you hearing on that front? And I'll share
Sure.
what is my understanding.
Yeah, so we've been actively lobbying on the Hill, and in fact, this since January, we've been having very focused discussions with members of the Senate Judiciary staff. And this is really important because the Senate Judiciary will really be the place where anything related to EB-5 will actually move. I mean,
Right.
yes, we can introduce bills and we can do other things and all of that, but where the real action will happen is in this specific committee. Yes, it's important to have the members of the House and the House Judiciary and all involved in this discussion, but the Senate Judiciary is where it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's Chairman Grassley, right? He's
Yes,
driving.
specifically.
Yeah,
All roads
yeah.
lead to Grassley. Back in 2021, if people want a little bit of a history lesson, the RIA was really crafted by two main senators, Senator Leahy and Senator Grassley. AIA had mostly done most of our work with Senator Leahy's office, but again, now he's no longer in Congress. Senator Grassley is really the one. This is his legacy. This is his baby, you know? When it comes to aligning grandfathering the expiry of the program, in my opinion, I don't think that's something that's going to happen.
Right.
I know that there is a great desire for it, no doubt, and there should be, but just seems highly unlikely that that is going to happen. I mean, the office, of course, has expressed that they want to see the program reauthorized. But again, it's not also up to them, right? Because again, like let's do a little basic civics lesson here in America, right? We've got the three branches of government, right? I'm going to put the judiciary aside because the courts have nothing to do with this. Well, no, sorry, I take that back. They kind of do because right now the gold card's also in court right now, so we'll see if that program even survives. But the administration has expressed their support for the gold card program. The legislature has expressed support for seeing EB-5 extended. So we have to understand that there is a conflict here. Even if, let's just say, the Senate Judiciary does end up, acting before, let's just say, in September or before the end of this year, they would need the support of the administration. So let's talk in practical terms. Like if we were to get reauthorization or extension of grandfathering, how exactly would that happen? What legislative vehicle it would go on? It would most likely have to be on a Homeland Security spending bill, the DHS spending bill. In fact, even in 2021, that was the vehicle that took it forward. I realize it was the omnibus because it was a mixture of a whole bus of different spending bills. But the main bill that it was deliberated upon was the DHS spending bill. In fact, right now, today, if you guys have been following the news about the TSA and all of that, the last year's DHS spending bill is still currently being debated on today. That's how far things have gone. I mean, we're in a partial government shutdown because of it. Again, a part of me believes that if we weren't in this conflict that this country is in right now, maybe in this very bill, we could have had squeezed in extension of grandfathering. But it's more likely if the next shot that we have is September's DHS spending bill, which could again easily, it could happen in September of this year, but it could also likely happen end of this year in the lame duck session. It could happen next year. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my opinion, and again, I don't know how other people feel about this, what we really should be watching is the November elections, because that's going to decide a lot of things. The November elections will decide who will be on the Senate Judiciary. It'll decide who will be in majority. If for example, again, this hypothetically here, if Republican members of Congress realize that their time is running out, then we may see a lot of action in December in the lame duck session when they can squeeze everything in. So it could happen then as well. Suddenly, the judiciary may wake up and decide that Senate judiciary may wake up and decide that, oh, we got to get everything done now. So this EB-5 regional center program, which is again part of the chairman's legacy, we should take care of that right now before the dynamics change next year. So there's a lot of things that could happen when it comes to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think so. The upshot is not likely that our hopes of having the September 30 grandfathering sunset align with the regional center program sunset next year. Not likely. So yes. What that means is we have got this. We've got September 30, 2026.
You got 6 months. If you want to do EB-5, do it in 6 months.
We got 6 months. Okay, so you know what? Let's do it. Let's do a deeper dive into grandfathering. You and I were both there. The moments that this got woven, that subparagraph S got woven into the fabric of the RIA under negotiation. So don't hesitate to leave out the drama. Tell our audience how that all happened from your point of view. So the lobbying, the drafting, the getting it into the law.
So look, I think, at this point and over the years, I've seen a lot of people try and take credit for putting this provision in, the grandfathering provision. And to be honest, at this point, I don't think it's worth sort of fighting over that. Because everyone has a different perspective. We were working closely with, Leahy's office, for example. And I know in particular, there was another group that was working with Grassi's office, and they also asked for grandfathering, as did we. I mean, in our view, in my opinion, I think we would take credit for it because we have emails going back and forth from Senate staff discussing the language and modifying it. In fact, it is our modified version that made it through, along with this weird extra caveat of it expiring 1 year earlier. But also, it was our position, and I get it, this sort of has led me not to have many friends in this industry, is that we push the narrative or the objective that grandfathering should be passed above all and end all. So even if Congress, the lobbyists, the real estate industry, even if you guys can't come to a final agreement as to what the future of the program will be, at the very least, at the very minimum, you must pass a grandfathering initiative so that everyone who's invested in the regional center program can get their green card. It is the most fair thing you can do. Of course, we received a lot of flack for it. People told us that if we push this narrative that we may not even get the regional center program with all of its changes and all of that. And yeah, maybe that's true up to a certain extent, but there has to be something more important than money and profits at the end of the day, And again, maybe look, I'm not, I no longer work with prospective investors and selling them into projects and all of that, but I would hope that people who are doing that today are ethical. And, they're not going to encourage people, say, after the end of grandfathering expiry, to encourage them to do EB-5. I mean, if you have to do it with make sure you're giving full disclosures, not just in writing, but also verbally, and helping these people understand that there is a risk to do EB-5 without this grandfathering protection. But again, being ethical, protecting immigrants that are taking the biggest decision of their lives, it boils down to us. All of us are stakeholders in this process. So.
Yeah, well, you know what? I do also want to touch on at some point in our conversation about October 1, 2026. And until the next time grandfathering gets a shot at re-upping and reauthorization. And, Ishaan, remember, we never had grandfathering before, prior to 2022, right? And we've certainly had a ton of shutdowns and lapses, like never as long as we had in 2021. But do you find it astonishing sometimes when you reflect on this and in our careers in this space? It's so humbling to me and astonishing that despite these crazy twists and turns and ups and downs and no man's lands that we've been through, investors keep coming. Investors keep coming.
Yeah,
And I, and it's like, first of all, it's profoundly humbling. But it's also like, are the curtains going to come down October 1? I mean, I don't think so.
October 1, 2026 or 2027?
Yeah, 2026.
2026, nothing will change. The question is in 2027, for all those people who do EB-5 between October 1st, 2026 and 2027, will they still be allowed to continue? That's the bigger question.
No. What I'm saying is, like, let's assume that, I mean, and we have to, they're not going to enjoy grandfathering provisions, right? Unless, like, listen, this is the reauthorization, RIA reauthorization. I'm going to say this right now. It's got to cover retroactively, the investors filing after October 1, right? We have not focused on this point. And I'm saying this publicly for the first time. When we reauthorize RIA, we must include provisions to protect investors investing after September 30th in the grandfathering provisions.
Yes, till the very end. So in October 2027, if we get a
Exactly, for that year,
for the next 5 years, however long the program is extended, grandfathering should piggyback all the way.
Correct.
Absolutely
We should not leave a gap. But for now, those investors will be coming in with no grandfathering provisions.
Which is dangerous.
But my point is, I think they'll keep coming.
Okay, but this is the point, right? Of course they're going to keep coming because there's plenty of immigrant investors out there that don't speak English, that rely on their lawyer, right? Because in many cultures, their lawyer is known as the end all be all, protecting them throughout the way. Many people will listen to their agents in foreign countries who tell them, don't worry, the program has been extended for many, many decades. It's going to happen all over again. But this is where, as practitioners and people involved in this advocacy space in the US who know what's going on, we need to acknowledge that the dynamics have changed. It's not the way it used to be for the past couple of decades. Like, again, this new administration has changed things. We as people who have worked in the US immigration space, we cannot guarantee that this program will be reauthorized, that grandfathering will be extended in October 2027. Just like we can't guarantee that we're going to have fair and free elections this November. I mean, there's this, even with this, like I said, this DHS spending bill that's currently being debated upon, the administration wants the SAVE Act included with it. That SAVE Act is going to disenfranchise a lot of people. That is going to have huge ramifications in this country. I mean, put EB-5 aside for a second. I mean, I don't even know if a part of me will even want to stay here if that's going to be the case. Look, I don't mean to get so cynical about this, but we also have to be realistic. Like, there is this narrative right now that I know a lot of people in the industry are pushing, that the gold card program and EB-5 can coexist. Look, my conversations on the Hill, I would want to say that the people on the Hill, they're not stupid. They totally get it. Even in the White House, in the halls of Congress, they completely get what's going on. They also are very, very aware that if you are a high net worth individual, if these two options are presented in front of you, you're obviously going to go for the one that is more financially sound. Why would you? So look, I've got this can of Gatorade in front of me, right? So if I want to buy this can of Gatorade, right, or your coffee, right, would you pay would you pay $8? Would you give $8 for that cup of coffee, knowing that you probably get that $8 back in, let's just say, a month? Or would you get that same cup of coffee, all this Gatorade, this green Gatorade, for $10, but not get that $10 back? What's the better financial decision?
Well,
It just,
I don't want us to get too far afield, but I mean,
sure.
I don't view this as a narrative. I mean, they're two totally different products. They're two
Yes, but they
totally
compete,
different.
but they compete for the same person, the same buyer. And if the administration wants more people to do Gold Card versus EB-5, what's the easiest thing to do? Just let it die
Well,
its
I
own
have
natural
seen
slow
no
death.
evidence that really there's any desire to do away with the EB-5 program and to replace it with the Gold Card. We did have those initial comments that I think were not well informed about the EB-5 program. I have not seen any evidence that they really reflect. Read the executive order, right? I mean, it's
Sure.
citing the Gold Card program in the EB-1, EB-2 categories.
I mean, I have so many responses to that. Like, just for example, you can't kill another program that's already been passed by members of Congress, like the EB-5, with an executive order. You can't kill it with that. You also can't create new
Well,
programs
you
with
could
it.
have put it in, you could have done what was done under EB-1 and EB-2. You could have
We-
tried to
yeah,
take EB-5 numbers by putting the Gold Card in the EB-5 preference
but
category.
but you
It was
can't do
not
that.
done.
You can't do that through an executive order, right?
Well, but it
So
was done through executive order for EB-1 and EB-2. That is where the Gold Card
yes,
program
of
was
course, of
slotted.
course.
So the question is, if there was a desire to do away with EB-5, to conflate the two programs, why wasn't the Gold Card put in? I just don't see evidence of that.
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
not
so
saying that
so
it's
I
not the
completely
case,
I completely agree with
but
you. But
anyway,
I think
we'll have another one. We'll have
yeah,
another
no,
one
no.
on the
I
Gold
think
Card.
the point I'm just trying to make here is that there is a risk. That's the problem, right? Because like I said, would have been business as usual. I do inherently believe that had whatever was said last year did not happen, if someone did not stand behind the president and say we're going to replace EB-5, this conversation wouldn't be happening. We would acknowledge that, look, yes, EB-5 is going to lose its grandfathering protection, but it's more likely than not that it will be reauthorized and extended. However, we can no
Now
longer,
I
I don't
get you.
feel
I
it's
get you.
fair to
I get
say
what you're
that
saying.
given
Yeah.
how the political dynamics have changed. And
Okay.
again, sort of circling back to this, which is we also have to, I know this is again a little abstract and people may not like see the connection here, but this November elections will have a huge impact in terms of what the future of the program will look like, whether we also have one or not. So.
All right. So, September 30th, it is going to be a hard deadline, folks. And so let's just come back to what you were saying about it, about responsible behavior on the part of advisors and everyone in this ecosystem. First of all, I'm going to put investors in there. Investors in there in the sense that investors also have to be profoundly aware of what they're buying.
Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
Right? Right? So let's start with that. I mean, and I'm even now, I do think that we have elevated this space and just injected and pushed in so much information into the space. You would have to deliberately want to ignore the information that's out there to be much, much more educated about the program than investors were 10 years ago. That said, there is a lot of stuff to sift through, more stuff to sift through. That's the flip side of it, right? I do think that, oh, there's no question. I mean, when I compare initial conversations with investors today, it's not even night and day. It's like multiple quantum leaps from where investors were 10 years ago to where they are now. They're asking refined, very, very sophisticated, very, very technical questions. Okay.
Yes.
That frankly, right now we have to elevate our game, right? We have got to know how to answer and to answer responsibly, right? So I think that's all really, really, really good. So investors awareness, knowledge level, engagement level, really high, excellent. Um, Please keep doing that because,
Yeah.
there's no out. There is no, oh, I didn't read that, even though it was in the document in bold, and
Yeah.
all
And,
caps.
and also, I think investors need to be aware of the changes that USCIS is getting meaner, from what I hear. At AIA, we are constantly approached by investors who are facing denials and noids and all that. Like, for example, something like doing a partial investment, right? That was a pretty common thing. People would invest a partial amount and then, show the rest of the money and the source of funds later. But now the agency's outright denying petitions where if you only show, say, your source of funds for 600K and then don't show the remaining 200 or
Right.
however much amount of money, then and even if it's all legal and you do it late and you respond to the RFE and the noise with the right evidence, the agency is still denying you because you didn't initially present the full sources of funds. Like, things have
Yeah,
become harder and harder.
it
So
is for sure, for
so
sure, for
so
sure, for sure.
so so I think, yes,
But,
investors
and
do need to go
Ishan, to
in
that
both
point,
aspects.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious. There are a lot of investor communities and chat groups. I mean, it almost seems like it would be impossible for there to be, non-information, like you just mentioned, partial
Mhm.
RFEs and outright denials, right? We're hearing of with partial cases. I've seen the notices as well. Not thankfully in our practice, but from folks seeking our consultation. So, and they're nasty. They are, I mean, and
Yeah.
there are lots of things we can say about the do's and don'ts based on those. Um, and I would also add, I think it is clear that at least in some cases, those notices are warranted based on the evidence or the
Completely fair. Yeah.
non-evidence submitted or not submitted. So, but chat communities and investor information, the information flow. I mean, it seems almost impossible that there are folks who don't know about these things, even about the trends like this that we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, and what's the information flow? Is it very active? Is it very reliable? I mean, like, what's your sense of it?
I
Because
think
that's
sometimes
new,
when sometimes information can become a little too much.
right?
The noise to signal ratio can vary widely at times. I think this is, again, sort of boils down to immigration attorneys and people, again, working in this space. Anyone who interfaces with investors, I mean, it is their responsibility to make sure that their client and their investor is taken care of. I mean, from dissuading them from, using risky sources of funds, to, if you're going to take unsecured loans from an entity, like making sure you really have all the right documentation to back it up. Like, I mean, look, sometimes, look, immigrant investors, they also are busy, right? I mean, they have full-time jobs, they have lives outside of doing EB-5. We live and breathe this stuff. Even with me, like someone who's not as actively involved, I still am aware of like the trends and all that are happening. But someone who starts digging in today, right? Because he just saw the EB2 dates move and he realizes that, man, that EB2, EB3 line is still moving too slowly, and now he's suddenly looking into EB5. He's
Well,
probably out there collecting money. Like,
and
he
so
will
you
mess
mentioned the
up. Yeah.
importance of attorneys and advisors.
Yeah.
How are investors to sift through the availability of, all of that? I mean, how do they do that? And here's the other thing. So let's just take somebody who, like I said, is like absorbing everything, super sophisticated, reading everything, very well informed, asking technical questions. To
Yeah.
those who are bona fide, legitimate, they want to do this, they need to do this, and not as well informed, or maybe they're like heart surgeons, they don't have the time. Um, what do they do? Even
I
you,
think, I mean, I hate to say this, and I mean, I actually hate saying this out loud because I can imagine like many people who work in this space probably don't like this idea either. But as an immigrant investor, just go out and talk to more people. Like if you're going to choose between, hey, who should be your lawyer? Like maybe talk to a few, and really like go through your source of funds with them and see how they respond. Like and at the end of the day, like yes, there are rankings and there's top 20 lists and top 10 lists and all of that stuff, but I think investors should listen to their gut and go with people who they really feel is better. Don't cheap out on good professionals. So that's on the lawyer side. And then when it comes to like the investment, I mean, yes, you can talk to different investment issuers, but if you don't have the time and patience to dig through a private placement memorandum and do a comparison analysis, do a financial stress test on each deal, go talk to like a registered broker dealer. Don't talk to like unlicensed like agents and all that living in foreign countries. Like I think like licensed broker dealers are fantastic by law. They have to be neutral. All their communications are monitored. I mean, you can just like gain a lot from even when it comes to say choosing, hey, who do I want like walking me through different investment options and helping me with my due diligence. Talk to a whole bunch of them, you know. I can, in fact, on your attendee list right now, I see a couple of like different guys. And look, I think it's fine that there's competition exists. I think we're all trying to serve the community. We're all trying to serve the client. And I think we should just be focused. I think for all the professionals, my take would be is to put your best foot forward. You're not going to be able to close every client. Not every investor will want to retain you as their lawyer, and that's okay. That's part of the job. Like I believe if people do good comes to them. I think, and that's what the immigrant investors should do the same thing. They shouldn't just talk to one professional and then completely have their views swayed. Like go talk to multiple ones,
Yeah.
get their perspectives, compare, contrast, go out, visit the project, go out and meet your lawyer in person at their office if you have to.
I
You're
think
making the
that
biggest decision of your life. So
I know.
yeah.
I think that that is actually really, really, really the two things that you said really resonated with me, which is number one, to compare, right? I mean, when I'm shopping at my green market for avocados, I'm like holding them, right? These are avocados. I'm like comparing them. I'm picking the best ones for me. And these are avocados. I mean, you know, this is you're putting $800,000
Mhm.
minimum. That's a lot for anybody. It should be. It represents a resource that is meaningful. It bears importance. It you need to make good decisions here, okay? For so many, many, many reasons, especially if there are children. It's a long game. This takes a long time, and children can age out.
Yeah.
There are many things that I find that when we're dealing with the problem cases, right? Like somebody comes in and or a group and things have gone horribly wrong. Very often in sifting through the record, almost always, I'm like, oh, right there, right, this is shouldn't should have gone left. You went right.
Hmm.
And I think that um, for investors, for most of you, it'll be once. This is one journey,
Yeah.
and that's how it should be. And so the seed point is critical. Invest everything you have by way of your resources, your attention into this moment. And unfortunately, it's not to say that even if you do this, that you'll come out intact, everything will be swell at the end. Why? Because risk is baked into the program. It is the fabric of the program. We require it. I don't know of any other RBI program in the world that requires risk.
I mean, there are some. I mean, like say something like the Greece program, right, where you can buy an apartment or a
All
house or
right.
something
Well,
and
all
get
right, fine.
residency card.
Well,
Yeah,
we do.
but
We
that real
do, and we've
estate
got
could
to do a
tank,
good
and
job.
No, no, I
So,
completely agree with you. I also think it comes with a lot of risk. But I guess my overall point, because again, this webinar is about deadlines, right? Is
right.
the risk. Right now, immigrants anyway take so much risk when they invest in EB-5 projects. To tack on additional legislative risks that may end up with them not getting the green card or delaying it if we get another lapse or something like that would not be good. Which is why at
Yeah.
least the September 30th deadline is real. Um, I personally, if I were to be doing EB-5 or if I was, back in the EB-5 space, advising investors and telling them where to invest, I would do the same. I would say the same thing, which is you got to do it before September 30th. Um, Doing it after that is very risky and would not be good. I think like, and I get it that even towards the end of this year, there's another deadline as well, right? When the investment amount goes up to 900,000, there'll be people who may want to do it then. But look, I mean, you have 6 months. You can plan ahead. And if you, as long as you have a really good lawyer that you've retained and you guys are working together to building out your source and your path of funds and all of that, then really you should get the result that you want. Waiting too late is
Ishaan, I want us to do something, and I realize we're over now. I would just went on a little tirade there. Sorry, guys. Um, you've been there. You were an investor. You also worked for projects,
yeah.
right? Let's do this. I mean, let's just imagine investors who are needing to they've made their decisions. They know, right? Because that's important. You cannot rush that decision. The yes or no, I'm going to do this or I'm not, because it's not for everybody. What if they've made their decision? I mean, let's just keep it to top five, not even top 10. Let's you and I work on top five principles to not even like necessarily do's and don'ts, top five principles to keep in mind as you move forward from that moment of, yes, I'm going to do this. What top five principles you've got to keep in mind as you make these important decisions at this seed point.
Sure.
All right.
Uh, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
keep
Do
those
you want to
investors who
alternate
are in
or?
trouble.
Yeah.
Let's work on it and then let's post it and then we'll share it out.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I was going to say like I have five right now that I can start sprouting
You got
in,
five
but
right now? Well, we're
I mean,
already over, but do it, do it, do it.
I
Let us
got,
five.
I got two right now, which
Okay.
I would definitely share.
All
One
right.
is,
I'm gonna write them down.
yeah, one is planning ahead, right? EB-5 is a big decision. It's probably the biggest decision that immigrant investors make. And I would say this, in fact, I'd say give this advice to investment issuers as well. Like if you're out there raising money, like plan ahead, try and wrap up your raises by like, August. Because in September you'll still have people filing, but chances are I don't think you'll find like last minute investors in September. So, plan out your raises, do that now, file your 956Fs, like get all that in, as soon as possible, because that's going to be a rush. And for investors, plan ahead as well, like plan ahead how you're going to get this money together, strategize. And then similarly, and this is advice that could actually be given to everyone involved in EB-5, which is to build the right team around you. If you're an immigrant investor, have the right immigration lawyer, have the right investment broker, find the ones, build the right team of people around you. That team will help you get the result that you want. And similarly for projects too, get the right business plan, right, or the right lawyer, all of that to do all this stuff.
I'm going to add a third to that, and then
Yeah,
we'll follow up with two more together.
sure,
And
sure.
this was the second thing that resonated with me with what you said earlier is your gut. Listening to your intuition, right? Like not just like what feels good, in the first 5 minutes of hearing, but sitting down, sifting through all the information, not skipping the diligence, not skipping it, but as you're doing the diligence, there will be a resonance. The something will feel right, other things will feel wrong, right? I really profoundly believe in the wisdom of this because you know what's good for you. And what's good for you is not necessarily what's good for the person standing next to you, who also should be listening to their intuition.
Yeah,
But I'm going to add that as my contribution to this for the moment. The third, listen to your gut, your
yeah.
heart.
So I'll take the fourth, which also ties into what I said earlier, which is to doing it before September 30th is, minimize the risks. Don't take risks with your funds. Don't take unsecured loans that you cannot document properly. I hear about this anecdotally that, a lot of immigrants are also pushing their lawyers to file quickly. And I get it. Everyone wants an early priority date. Everyone wants to be early, but like, don't push your lawyer. Don't, harass them into filing your petition so quickly because they can make mistakes and mistakes will lead to RFEs or noids or denials. And you don't want to be someone sitting with a denial post September 30th of this year. Like that,
Yeah.
refiling again is not, I know there's a lot of people who are doing that right now, but that's not something you can afford to do later on in the future. So don't take unnecessary risks. And same thing, even with, even just with general immigration things. Like I know there's, people in countries outside the US which are contemplating coming in on B1, B2, and then filing adjustments after 90 days. Like this is a very risky path. Like I don't want to get into the nuances of all of that, but you can paint it whichever way you want. But if that is something you're considering doing while you're abroad, please don't. That is an unnecessary risk that could hamper your future. So investment risk, legislative risk, immigration risk, try to minimize them.
Yeah, those are all really, really good. Well, folks, you're gonna have to wait for the fifth one then. The fifth one we'll work on together and it will be worth the wait. So, Ishaan, thank you. As always, lively discussion, candid as ever. And just thank you so much. Continue to do the great work you do. And
Absolutely.
friends, thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time. Be well. Bye-bye. Bye, Ishaan.
Bye.